type crimes. They target the elder population with a promise of financial gain. Losses can range from as little as $500 to tens of thousands of dollars. Groups obtaining victim social security numbers and date of births to access bank accounts. Email scams, promises of payouts from $10,000 to the millions. Victims required to provide bank account numbers for deposit information. Victims required to send money to release funds, and I'll go over a couple of the scams here in a minute. Commonly referred to as a Nigerian scam, which is an overseas network that has proven to be ineffective in avoiding prosecution. And we'll talk a little bit about the Nigerian scam later, but it has been directly related to funding worldwide terrorism groups. $100,000 or more for the FBI to become involved and investigate these types of crimes. We as a law enforcement agency in the state of Pennsylvania or any other state in the United States come across an international case, let's say for $50,000 that we can track to another country. We have no authority to prosecute a person in that country. And the FBI has a threshold of $100,000. However, that does not mean just because it's under 50, there might be a continuing course of conduct by that group somewhere else in the United States in the database that would get that total to the $100,000 mark, that would enable them to commingle those investigations together in order to prosecute it. The grandparent scam. So you're a grandparent, you get a phone call or an email from someone who identifies himself as your grandson. And this happened to one of our troopers at the barracks' grandparents. The grandson said, I've been arrested in another country. I need money wired quickly to pay my bail. And oh, by the way, don't tell mom and dad because they'll be upset. Sounds legitimate. This is an example of what's come to be known as the grandparent scam. Another fraud that preys on the elderly, this time taking advantage of their love and concern for their grandchildren. The scam has become more sophisticated. Thanks to the internet and social networking sites, a criminal can sometimes uncover personal information about their targets, which makes the impersonations more believable. For example, the actual grandson may mention on his social networking site that he's a photographer who often travels to Mexico. When contacting the grandparents, the phony grandson will say he's calling from Mexico, where someone stole his camera equipment and passport. Telemarketing fraud. If you're 60 years of age or older, and especially if you're an older woman living alone, you may be a special target of people who sell bogus products and services by telephone. Telemarketing scams often involve offers of free prizes, low-cost vitamins, healthcare products, and inexpensive vacations. There are warning signs to these scams. If you hear these or similar lines from a telephone salesperson, tell them to just say no thank you and hang up the telephone. The scammers will say, you must act now or the offer won't be good. You want a free gift, a vacation, a prize, but you have to pay for postage and handling or other charges. You must send money, give a credit card number, a bank account number, or have a check picked up by a courier. You may hear this before and have a chance to consider the offer carefully. The callers say you do not need to speak to anyone, including your family, lawyer, accountant, local Better Business Bureau, or Consumer Protection Agency. You don't need any written information about the company or its references. And you can't afford to miss this high profit, no risk offer. Some tips to help the elders avoid this. Don't buy from unfamiliar companies. Always ask for and wait till you receive written material about an offer or a charity. Always check out unfamiliar companies with your local Consumer Protection Agency. Obtain a salesperson's name, business identity, telephone number, street address. If you ask these questions and if they continue to ask these questions, most of the times the caller will hang the phone up on them. Before you send money, ask one simple question. What guarantee do I really have that this solicitor will use my money in the manner we agreed upon? There is no guarantee. As stated previously, Nigerian letter, or what is called a 419 fraud. Nigerian letter frauds combine the threat of impersonation fraud with a variation of advanced fee schemes in which a letter mailed from Nigeria offers the recipient the opportunity to share in a percentage of millions of dollars that the author, a self-proclaimed government official, is trying to transfer illegally out of Nigeria. The recipient is encouraged to send the information to the author, such as a blank letterhead, stationery, bank name and account numbers, and other identifying information using a fax number provided in the letter. Some of these letters have also been received via email through the internet. The scheme relies on convincing a willing victim who has demonstrated a propensity for larceny by responding to the invitation to send money to the author of the letter in Nigeria in several installments of increasing amounts of variety. Payments of taxes, bribes to government officials, and legal fees are often described in great detail with the promise that all expenses will be reimbursed as soon as the funds are spirited out of Nigeria. And actually, the $1 million do not exist. The victim eventually winds up with nothing but a loss. Once the victim stops sending money, the perpetrators have been known to use the personal information and checks that they received to impersonate the victim, draining bank accounts and credit card balances. While such an invitation impresses most law-abiding citizens as a laughable hoax, millions of dollars of losses are caused by these schemes annually. How can we avoid it? If you receive a letter from Nigeria asking you to send a personal banking information, do not reply in any manner. Send the letter to the U.S. Secret Service, the local FBI office, or the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. You can also register a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission complaint assistant. Be skeptical of individuals representing themselves as Nigerian or foreign government officials asking for your help in placing sums of money in overseas bank accounts. Do not believe the promise of large sums of money for your cooperation, and always guard your account information carefully. Identity theft. Probably someone in this room has been the victim of identity theft. Identity theft occurs when someone assumes your identity to perform a fraud or other criminal act. Criminals can get information they need to assume your identity from a variety of sources, included by stealing your wallet, rifling through your trash, or compromising your credit or bank information. They may approach you in person, by telephone, or the internet and ask for the information. The sources of information about you are so numerous you cannot prevent the theft of your identity, but you can minimize your risk loss by following a few simple steps. A couple steps to avoid being a victim of identity theft would be never throw away ATM receipts, credit statements, credit cards, or bank statements in a usable form. Shred them. Never give your credit card number over the telephone unless you make the call. Reconcile your bank account monthly and notify your bank of any discrepancies immediately. Very important. A lot of times you'll see the fraud begin with a $1 or $2 charge that the person does not even really look at their statement. They see $1 or $2, they don't think much of it, and the next thing you know, the following month is a $4,000 to $8,000 charge. They want to see if the transaction goes through. That's why they'll do the small amount first. If it's not noticed, they know we're good, and then we move on. Keep a list of telephone numbers to call, report the loss or theft of your wallet, credit cards, report unauthorized financial transactions to your bank, and review your statements at least monthly. Some advanced fee schemes. An advanced fee scheme occurs when the victim pays money to someone in anticipation for receiving something of greater value, such as a loan, contract, investment, or gift, and then receives little or nothing in return. The variety of advanced fee schemes is limited only by the imagination of the con artists who offer them. They may involve the sale of products or services, the offering of investments, lottery winnings, found money, many other opportunities. Clever con artists will offer to find financing arrangements for their clients who pay a finder's fee in advance. They require their clients to sign contracts in which they agree to pay the fee when they are introduced to the financing source. Victims often learn that they are ineligible for financing only after they have paid the finder's fee, according to the contract. Such agreements may be legal unless it can be shown that the finder never had the intention or the ability to provide the financing for the victims. Some tips for avoiding credit card fraud. Don't give out your credit card number online unless it is a site that is secure and reputable. Sometimes a tiny icon of a padlock appears to symbolize a higher level of security to transmit data. This icon is not a guarantee of a secure site, but provides some assurance. Don't trust a site just because it claims to be secure. Before using the site, check out the security encryption software it uses. Make sure you are purchasing merchandise from a reputable source. Do your homework on the individual or company to ensure that they are legitimate. Obtain a physical address rather than simply a post office box and a telephone number, and call the seller to see if the telephone number is correct and working. Two biggest things to remember. If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. If you're unsure, ask somebody to help you verify. What can we do? Education. How do we educate? Elder victims aren't the easiest to educate. Sometimes we can call them hard-headed, set in their ways, as we all are in some form of respect. However, if you don't talk about the issues that I just brought up to you, and they'll never be aware of them. So you don't have to educate in a form of lecturing. However, you can educate in just a form of conversation and just throw it out there, because you're not going to remember every single thing they tell you, but they might remember bits and pieces of what you talked about, which could spawn something to realize, hey, I've just been a victim, or I'm going to become a victim. The awareness that goes along with the education. How do we become aware? Talking, education, TV ads, Office of Aging, your local healthcare professionals, all bring awareness to any type of elder abuse victimization. The key to identifying and minimizing victims. How do we minimize victims?